Say what now? You brought home fish? Never did I ever in my wildest dreams imagine that I would be introduced to the notion of having fish in my home. Fish? My Persian wife, dangling 3 tiny little bubbies in front of me, said, honey, don't worry. Don't worry, Azizam. This is for Persian New Year. They only live 3 days. 3 days. Didn't sound right. Quick Google search helped me know. More like 30 years. 30 years. I'm like, okay, so now I have fish in my life for the next 30 years if all goes well. And I do it lovingly and keep them alive. I don't want fish. I don't want fish. Thus began an adventure of many, many years, and one that, while I would never have signed up for it, informed me and taught me things that I just would not have learned any other way, such as classic life. At first, I killed 2 of the 3 out of pure naivete, pure ignorance, not recognizing that to give them clean water meant also to process the chlorine out of that water, things like that. All the things that become a no-brainer, and yet to one who didn't have fish on the menu, let alone as a pet in mind, it was a harsh learning, and one that was done at their expense. And one of those 3 lived. He was given the name Chub because he was quite the eater, and he was tiny, so it was meant in good fun. We got him another little friend so he wouldn't be lonely, and we named her Vanilla. She was a beautiful creamy color. Chub was the beautiful, brilliant orange. And pretty quickly, they developed a dynamic that was intolerable. Chub was bullying Vanilla night and day. And it didn't matter how we attempted to talk them off the ledge. There was no stopping it. No threat, no beg, no borrow, no steal. He was going to be doing this with her. And I was at my wit's end. I figured that to love them was to break them up. And now I was facing having 2 fish tanks where I didn't even want 1. And I just was flabbergasted. There came this day when, by the grace of the universe, I came upon a video of an animal communicator. Her name is Anna. I think her last name is Brennenbach. She's look-upable, and I recommend it. She changed my life. 10-minute video of her working with a panther who, before conversating with her, was extremely dangerous to all humans and incredibly unhappy, very clearly grumpy and shut down and traumatized from poor treatment in his earlier life, to after that conversation, so entirely different, to where he was no longer a danger. He felt safe. He was moseying outside into the pasture, just altered dramatically and instantly through, much like humans, when we have really sacred, deeply transformative conversations, we also can have before and after experiences of ourselves. It was so moving to me that I looked over, like in slow motion, at my 2 little bubbies, and I just went, maybe, just maybe, I can cross this gap. And I did. I actually went to little Chub and I said, "Do you not like your name?" And I heard an answer. He said, Nope. So I turned to my heart daughter and I said, hey, what do you make of this? What do you, what's his name? What's his real name? And she didn't even think. She didn't even take a breath. She just said, Peace. And I said, what do you say, mister? How's the name Peace for you? He said, yep. And instantly, just like that panther that I had witnessed minutes before, in that video, Peace transformed his behavior right then and there. Never again did I see him chasing little Vanilla around the tank. He rose to the dignity of his new name, and he felt himself recognized for the sentience that he did in fact have. And he showed me from there time and again in many different situations that he was very capable of communicating, capable of responding, deciding, making different choices, evolving. This little guy with his fixated downward smile, his frown, permanent frown, was full of a vast range of emotions. And most of all, and more importantly for me, he was capable of an incredible level of his own name, of peace. He was a bliss master. He became in that moment not just one for me to rescue and do right by. He became a teacher of communicating across species, a teacher of what it's like to create ease and total wholeness, total fulfillment, simply in sucking rocks off the bottom of a tank day in and day out, taking a jaunt that was a very tiny circle around a glass boundary. And he was a deeply centered, harmonious element in my life, as was Vanilla. They became that together. Vanilla had some more learning to do, though, and now that I knew I could communicate with him, I knew I could with her too. Not too long thereafter, as they had become friends, she started to exhibit something where she would bug on him. So it's like the table had turned. At this point, he would have bouts of, it looked like fatigue or lethargy. He just would not be as buoyant. And she didn't like it. She would get after him. I'd watch her nip his tail, push him along, and I wasn't having it. So I went to her, and just like I would do with any human that I work with in my counseling, I went to her and I said, Nils, come here, baby. Let's have a talk. And she came right over and she just looked at me and just wiggled her tail nice and slow, just wading in the water and saying, all ears, all heart. And I said, honey, do you not remember when he used to get after you and how much you didn't like it? And I said, it seems as though you're not getting that you can be you when he doesn't feel well. She was such a little dancer. She was my tiny dancer. And so effervescent and flamboyant in her character. He was more chill, laid back dude-ish. And yet, man, when he was down, it's like she thought she had to put all that spice and pomp and circumstance away, and she didn't want to have to. So I told her, you don't have to. Just do you, babe, and let him do him. Leave him be when he doesn't feel good. Just let him. It will help so much more to let him have space so he can find his way back to his own physical center. Sure enough, y'all, she did not ever again bug on him. And she had started to make it a pattern. So again, this change was impossible to not notice. And the validation of the recognition of what we were transmitting to one another, it would have been hard to deny. These two became such extraordinary partners. They would lie together so quietly. They would play. They learned to give each other space. They were a source of dramatic togetherness of such a heavenly kind for me. I had been going through such bouts of illness myself, so many rounds with my disease, and they taught me what it meant to just be. The depth of that can truly not only be enough, it can be more than enough. To be is the gold, and they knew it, and I did too. They lived together with me for a lot of years, and I traveled with them all over California. It was quite the ride for all of us. For them as fish, for me as nomad, carrying these fish all around, going through really dramatic life circumstances, and they became such a constant. At a certain point, Vanilla became ill. This was many years in. She became bloated. I had just lost several other loved ones, and I didn't feel up for another. And I attempted to bargain with God, which is never really a good idea. I watched as the life faded from her until she took her last breath. In so doing, I watched as peace came over and took in what had happened. He had been giving her space the way that they knew how to do. He knew she wasn't well, and he was to himself, letting her be to herself. And exactly as the life left her, as she dissipated, he swam over and he nudged her. And then he took her body he went under her, and he lifted her to the surface, and then he danced her downward. He literally danced with her lifeless body in swirls and twirls for several minutes at least. And then he brought her to rest with him in the old way that they had done. For a long time, he just was still with her, resting, being against her, until he knew what to do. And one more time, he went under her and lifted her to the surface, to us, our waiting hands. And he held her up there saying, "It's time, take her." And we did. My lovey and I, who had become such family to these fish, we took our dearest, beautiful, creamy Vanilla out of the tank, and we buried her outside. Peace proceeded to grieve. And the way he went about it was extraordinary. And again, I bowed to him as teacher. He so showed me how it can be done. At first, he proceeded to repeat the same movements that he had made, like he was retelling himself the story. He went from the corner where he had waited for her to pass over to where she passed. He would do the twirl of the dance in the middle of the tank, and then he would bring himself up to the surface of the water and hang there, right where he had let her go. It was an exact replica of his own movements in those last moments. And he did this repeatedly for a long time. And we realize he's honoring his willingness to surrender to the what was, to be with what is, that which is so hard, and to meet that moment of let go with grace. And he did that. And he knew it, and he honored it. He honored it in himself. And he let us in to honor that with him. And then he turned that into a marathon of an experience for at least about 3 days, day and night, nonstop, no matter when we came to check on him. He was doing laps of the tank. He ran out his grief. He ran out all that energy, all that missingness. He just moved it. He did it until he had run it all the way out of himself. And then he became deeply still. And then finally, he began, little by little, to eat again. It was profound to be a part of, to bear witness to. After some time had passed, he was himself again. In fact, he was in some ways more like her than he had ever been. He was more her gregarious expression. And it was remarkable to see him either take her on, literally, the energy of her, or to embody the memory of her. And I asked him at that point, when he was more centered again in his harmony, I asked him, Peace, do you want a partner, another one? I would be truly willing to find you a companion, if that would suit you. And I heard him say to me, No, I have had the best. And now I'm going to explore solitude. And he did. For a long time he did. Several years. And he did well with it. I would come in and he would be himself. He would just be at ease. He wasn't depressive or anything, just happy. It was like he was still with her. He was connected to her, and he would connect with us even more than he ever had. As time went by, I came to know and love a man who had land that I eventually purchased myself. It was land with a wild pond, small pond with a big family of koi and goldfish who were incredibly safe there for the most part and very happy together, very harmonious. And he asked me, he said, what about peace? How about putting peace in that pond with this family? And my mother instinct was like, hells no. Oh, no. First of all, this little guy's only known this life. I'm not exposing him to the wild. He wouldn't know what to do with the wild. He'd probably get trounced in 2 seconds. Not to mention that, Mama Bear over here is just in love with him. I don't want to lose him. Well, that was the initial reaction in me, and I'm not one to settle for such reactions. So as soon as I saw Peace the next time, I asked him. I figured, it's his life, man, and it's his choice, and I know how to talk to him, so let's go. So I said to him, is there any possibility that you would want to go into, now how do you explain a pond, right, to one who only knows a tank? So instead of giving him a word, I gave him a vision. I showed him vastness, a vastness so large with no boundary. And I said, there's a place like this that you could go to, and there's this fishy family there that are really cool. They're all super cool and loving, and I know you'd be welcome. Would you want to go there? Because I will help you go there if you want to. And he said very quickly, not too quickly, quickly, he said, nah. So I said, okay, fair enough. Well, some days went by, and I entered the room where his tank was, and there he was, treading water, very intensely and intently looking at me in that unbroken way that I always knew meant he had something to say. So I started in, doing my best to hear him, and I wasn't quite getting it at first. And then finally it got to me. He got to me. And I said, you want to go to the pond? Yes. He broke into a dance that rivaled Vanilla's dances. It was incredible. It was full tank expression, like all over the tank, all over the place, lacy to the max, so magnificent, elegant. And I just thought, oh my God, this is really it. He was so excited to go to that pond. Well, it took a vast adventure. It took a whole training process, acclimating him to the water over a long period of time, adding it to the tank. Getting him up there in the first place was a wild ride. He was my shotgun in a U-Haul truck. And sure enough, the day came, and we very gently brought him down in a tote, and ever so gently just lowered him down into that water and let him swim out of the tote at his own pace and into that vastness. And at first, he went between my legs. He swam immediately under me. I could just feel him going, whoa, whoa, like this. And then little by little, he began to explore the shoreline. And he followed it all the way around the pond, all the way around so he could know the border before he decided to explore the center, the allness of the center, across which he could not see. And as he lay there quietly, having traversed the entire circumference, a flash came. This little shadow came and trounced him. And the mother in me just gasped, is this it? Is it a snake? What was it? I thought he was done for. He disappeared. The shadow disappeared. I just knew not what to make of it. And then all of a sudden, they reappeared under the lily pads. And I could just make out that unbeknownst to me, before putting Peace in the pond, there was in fact another fish his size. All the others were like 3, 4, 5 times his size. And this little one was perfect for him. A little black one, and I named her Suri, and named her Surrender. This fish, this Prince of Peace, entered his second blissful life with a partner just waiting for him. I got to really practice letting go. In that pond, he was predated upon. I got to witness herons, bears, hunting him, hawks, sitting in the trees, looking hungry down at him and his family, making their attempts. I had prepared myself and him for that, thank God. When I first heard him say, yes, I want to go to the pond, I said, now, do you understand, though, Peace? Do you know what a predator is? And he responded to me, what I heard was, yeah, of course I do. And I laughed and I said, well, how could you? I mean, you've been in this tank your whole life. He said, it's in my bones. My people know. So I'm like, fair enough. And I said, well, the thing is, how do you feel about that? Because this pond has such an element in it, to it. I mean, you really could end up eaten. And the response that I got from him put me on my knees and in tears. It was so humbling. And again, I knew him as teacher. He said plainly, It would be an honor to be food. An honor to be food. Well, in fact, he became food. Last winter, unbeknownst to me until just recently, he disappeared and they stopped seeing him. The thought is that he was eaten by hawk. And I've grieved the loss of a son in this world in these last days. Though I likely wouldn't have seen him again and had left that land having said a true last goodbye just in case. It was so intense for my human to know that he was no longer on the planet, that he hadn't actually gotten to live 30 years. And then I began to really recognize, he was willing to be eaten. He was eaten by a hawk and taken into the sky, most likely. He became a sky being, having been a water being, having been born in a fish mill of a PetSmart type scenario among thousands of other fish, bought to take home to symbolize good luck and live 3 days. What an epic journey this little being went on instead, waking me up, waking many up to the sentience of not only fish, but the implication being that all beings have consciousness, have intelligence that is vast, and that is their own sort of intelligence. He was a catalytic agent for so many in the humbling of our minds, the expanding of our minds, and the opening of our hearts to a much deeper way of connecting across species, across differences, deeper than mind. I carry him now inside me as I do his beloved vanilla, as I do so many that I have lost and not lost, lost and found again in the spirit realm. And in his honor, I keep his story alive. And I hear him saying to all of us, be happy. This life is a gift. And when we leave here, we can feel honored to become food. Food for those that will come along thereafter. We make room for the next generations, and we nourish them with the minerals of spirit, of body, so that this world can carry on. We don't need to be afraid of that. The body will give itself up as gift, and the spirit will become the light that it's always been. And this is the way of things. And we can join him in celebrating it. Birds are singing sweet and low on the trees that gently grow. Soft and soothing breezes blow on this lovely day. Through the meadow there go I, to wander as the butterfly. How the flowers please my eye on this lovely day. How I wish it could be always. Life is easy on such a day. I wish this peace on everyone on this lovely day. Ba-da-da-da-da. this joy on everyone on this lovely day. Thank you, God, that I'm an instrument of love. Thank you, I'm an instrument of love. Thank you, love endures all things and is forever. Thank you, it's in giving we receive. Thank you that in choosing love I draw nearer to you. I draw nearer you, my truest self. Thank you that even in my darkest hour, you're here with me.